Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of The Pow Factor, the podcast where we share stories and strategies from incredible powerhouse women who are dominating in their fields. I'm Jori Mundy, your host, and I am so excited because today we have a special treat for you today. A dear friend of mine, Colleen Russell, who is a powerhouse in leadership development and executive coaching, and she is a former executive with Southwest Airlines. I am so excited because she's going to share so many nuggets. So let's welcome Colleen to the show. Colleen, I am so excited that you are here. I am so gracious. You know, I have been so inspired by your journey, and I just admire all of the incredible things that you have been doing to impact so many different networks. I know me, so many different people. And so one of the things that comes to me as we start this episode that comes up for me is we are celebrating the power of women on this podcast. And, you know, I'm a girl's girl. So I truly believe that women in their own right are incredible. We have so many different gifts to offer. We have so much impact that we have that creates ripples in the world. And so as we think about that, as you think about that, could you share a moment or experience from your journey where you felt an undeniable sense of empowerment?
Well, Jori, it is a pleasure to be here with you, and I couldn't be more excited to share anything I can for your listeners and for our new network. Empowerment. So I don't know if it's wisdom, age, or experience, but many years going through my career, I was very influenced by what others thought of me. And I really worried, tone of voice, how did they respond? And I was so wrapped up in that. And one day I felt comfortable in my own skin. And I said, you know what? I'm proud of myself. I'm just going to thank myself. I'm going to pat myself on the back. I'm going to be proud of what I have done. And I would say it took many years to get there. And again, I think that it's your own confidence and assurance in your own self that makes you say, it's not what other people think. It's, did I do what I set out to do? And can I be proud of myself? I think that speaks volumes. And I think as women, we're a little too hard on ourselves. So it's hard to get that voice to come out. But I would say from an empowerment standpoint, that makes me happiest.
Wow. That is, I love that you said that. And I just ruminate over conversations that I've had with just other women and just people that aspire to be their best selves. And that has been something that has come up that I've heard as a theme of like, we can get so caught up and feeling if people are receiving us in the way that we want to be received. And, you know, then there's thoughts of worthiness and, you know, just how can I show up? And what I'm hearing you say is that when you started to seep into the power of yourself and know that you are powerful in your own right and thanking yourself for, you know, everything that you've given to yourself and what you've accomplished, then it seemed like there was a shift to accept all of who you are. Wow, that is incredible stuff. I feel like that will resonate so much with our listeners, for those who may have those thoughts on like, do people like me? Did I show up in this way? Should I have said that? Did this offend someone? All of those thoughts and just recognizing that the power is in you and that you showing up in your most authentic self is what people, you know, are going to gravitate towards and resonate with. But even if not, it's still okay. That does not take away your power. That does not take away your power. Wow. Good stuff. So you mentioned something about just feeling that sense of being received, and when you're dealing with so many different things, which puts me into a frame of mind for the next question. And the next question is about just managing it all, right? Society tells women, right, that we should manage everything, or there's the taboo subject of can you do it all? Can you manage it all? What does it look like? And so, my question is, how have you managed to have a successful career as a woman, navigating both your personal and professional life and demands? And what does that look like for you?
Wonderful question. And I will be honest, I didn't get it right. There were
Mm,
times where I recognized
mm,
I didn't get it right.
mm,
But I'll tell you what I learned from that and how I pivoted away from that. That darn pandemic. Um, I recognized how off kilter I was.
mm,
Most important to me.
mm,
And here's what I mean by that. We had the opportunity to work from home.
mhm,
And I realized in being, maybe it was proximity,
mm,
maybe it was my focus, maybe I was just rejiggering my time
mhm,
to work in a different way, but I was supporting my husband more.
mm,
We were having more meals together.
mm, mm,
I was being a friend for coffee.
mm,
I was
mm,
nurturing relationships.
mm,
And when I recognized what I'd been missing,
mm,
I realized I hadn't set enough boundaries. So, what
mm,
I would say is, you kind of know when you've done too much and you need to kind of know your limits.
mm,
So I pulled back, I readjusted, I realized I need to make some pivots here. So
mm,
yes, you can have it all, but you have to say no to some things to say yes to others, right?
mm,
And so you have to know what means most to you and what you can put forward.
mm,
So that's what I did, and it worked well for me at the time. However, let me go back to what I said earlier. When you don't have boundaries,
mm,
all your eggs are in one basket, and you have one
mm,
bad day at work, and that's all you dwell on. You
mm,
don't dwell on your blessings. You don't dwell on what all you have. You
mm,
don't dwell on the good that happened in the day. You focus too hard on one thing. So I think it's important to recognize where you're paying attention. And so that would be my advice. Pay attention, know your boundaries, know your limits.
mm.
So that's something I learned, and should have adjusted a little bit sooner.
And I picked up one thing that you talked about in particular when you first started addressing, which was you had this defining moment that you were off kilter, right? And that there was something that was just off. And so for our listeners, someone who maybe is managing family, they have husband, they're dedicated to different causes that they are focused on. They have, of course, their career, that defining moment of being off kilter. Is that the time when you felt like, you know what, there's this light bulb that went off and now this is the day that I must change and shift?
Yes.
Okay.
And you know what it was? It was where I was feeling joy. So that
Mm,
sounds funny to use joy as off kilter, but the truth
mm,
was I was experiencing joy, and I said, I want to hang on to this.
mm,
Off kilter was, I'm getting maybe achievement, or I'm feeling valued or challenged, or I'm
mm,
having these experiences at work that were very, profound and very gratifying.
mhm,
But once I started realizing, wait a minute, there's joy in other things,
mm,
I need to rebalance.
mm.
So it was kind of seeing what I had been missing, that missing ingredient.
Wow. So it is what I'm hearing you say is following the joy, and that is going to put your life back in balance if you are on a different path or you're feeling off kilter.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Good deal. So, and you talked about, challenge in a sense of some of the things that, of course, many of us, all of us deal with in some point of our lives as a part of our own development and growth. And as, we talk about and give insight to aspiring women leaders who want to continue to grow and continue to advance and take on those challenges, what do you think is the biggest challenge an aspiring a woman leader is faced with as they are climbing what we call the proverbial career ladder?
Biggest challenge. How might I phrase this? you got to get out of your head.
Mm.
I think that, I said the word limits earlier. I think that you can be your own limitation and you can hold yourself back. And it may be fear,
Mm.
be lack of belief.
Mm.
And here's the thing. There is no manual. There is no order
Mm.
and rule book
Mm.
for being a leader in this world.
Mm.
Last I checked, haven't seen one. There's tips, there's tricks, but there's no here's how to get from A to B to C. There is nothing that exists.
Mhm. Mhm.
So no human being that is in a leadership position
Mhm.
that shouldn't be fearful or maybe lack of
Mm.
belief. Maybe it's all present.
Mm.
It's how you deal with it.
Mm.
It's how you respond to that.
Mm.
So I would say you've got to find a way to let that fear dissipate because the realization is you will fail. And guess what? That's a good thing. You have to put things
Mm.
to learn from that.
Mm.
Your lack of belief, well, how do you know unless you don't try?
Right.
So I think you need to get out of your head
Mm.
and you need to push through fear and lack of belief and be brave. And I think that by doing that, see how far you'll go. And I think too often females, at least women that I've interacted with, it's that afraid to put that toe in. It's afraid to just start.
Mhm.
Whereas I do see men a little bit more like, all right, can't hurt me.
Mhm.
Why not?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I don't think we got that in our genes. I
Mm.
think women have a timidness sometimes. But
Mhm.
you know what? Watch us. I've seen some of the most powerful women I know being the best solvers
Mm.
out there,
Mm.
and they don't have a rule book.
Mm.
They don't have a guide, but they figure it out.
Mm.
I
Mm.
think we need to unleash a little bit of our potential and get rid of that fear.
I love that, and I feel like that aligns a lot with, of course, what you mentioned, self-belief, and what I like to call the imposter monster, right? Is feeling
Yes.
like when you want to go for that next promotion, you could be self-sabotaging yourself because you are believing and running to the worst case scenario of what could happen, which could mean what you mentioned, failure. But even if that happens, it's still okay. It's still okay. We grow and learn by still believing and taking the risk to move forward regardless of the outcome. Now, of course, we never want to shift to the worst case scenario because I know sometimes our brains, work like that. But what I'm hearing you say is, just really doing it scared and managing those thoughts that are coming up that are telling you that you're not worthy or telling you that that next promotion you are actually going to be successful. They're waiting for you to deliver your value and your competitive advantage that you bring because only you have that. And so, but it is being able to manage the thoughts that you're having that could prevent you from being able to go to the next level.
Well said.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So uh, that piques my interest to talk about, as you were mentioning, just challenges and moving towards adversities. Right, as women, we encounter so many different things, and one of our adversities can be ourselves, right, and our thoughts. And as I think about just the myriad of things that could stop us, for you, what adversities would you say that you've encountered that have helped shape you to thrive in your career? And something that you think of, hey, this is the turning point, and maybe it is self-belief, but is there a certain encounter that you think about that shifted and helped you as you move forward?
I have a story, and if you'll indulge me, I will share because I do think this was a very pivotal moment for me. This was a really tough experience.
Mhm.
So I have changed jobs multiple times when I was in my career, and I had just moved into a new role. And boy, I was excited. I was thrilled. I was in a new space, and I was really, really excited. And 4 months in, there was a reorganization. It had nothing to do with me. It had nothing to do with my team. And I watched as my team got taken away from me. Again, it wasn't
Mm,
me, it was the function.
mm,
It
mm,
completely moved.
mm,
Oh, I didn't feel good about
Mm,
this. I thought I made a mistake.
mm,
I shouldn't have made this
mm,
change. Oh no, what will I do
mm,
now? What's in the future for me?
mm,
There was a lot of uncertainty there.
mm, mm,
And here's two things that I will share with you that were most important.
mm,
Number one, I ended up being put into a job
mm,
that ended up being one of my most gratifying favorite experiences.
mm,
But I never would have had that job had all this not happened.
mm,
So you just never know what is around the corner. So that's one thing to remember. The
mm,
second, pulling up those bootstraps
mm,
and not wallowing and not saying, oh dear, woe is me.
mm, mm,
You know what? I'm going to have to be the best version of myself. You know what?
mm,
I need to support my leadership team.
mm,
I need to support this change.
mm,
I need to support the team
mm,
that's moving in different
mm,
directions. And you know what happened? A lot of people saw how I navigated that change
mm,
and started knocking on my door. And they said, can you give me some advice?
mm,
How did you navigate this?
mm,
How are you doing so well with this?
mm,
And you know what it did? It made me a really great mentor. And I had people just knocking down my door because they started to see I was a good, connector. I could relate to them and they wanted my advice.
mm,
I will say that what that did was prompt me into what is my most favorite thing to do, which is to help, coach, advise,
mm,
mentor
mm,
people.
mm,
All of those experiences happened because of one small organization change.
mm,
And it really led me to be a different person. So just you never know what something will bring out of
mm,
you. And that would be my hope
mm,
is that people can say, you never know what's around the corner.
mm,
Let me hang on. Let me continue to be the best version of myself because
mm,
you never know.
mm. And what I heard you also say in a way of just showcasing that you rode the wave and you went with the flow of things, without shifting or resisting or pivoting, but allowing that situation to play out, and then you discovered, hey, this is the most gratifying piece of, what happened as a part of the situation. But it's riding that wave to get to that point, when there could be something that comes up for someone that says, oh my gosh, this is chaos right
Mhm.
now. Maybe I'm supposed to jump or take action because, as solvers and powerful women, right? We jump right into action. Something's happened, and here's my contingency plan. Here's what I need to do. And what I'm hearing you say is, how can I show up being my best version in this chaos and ride this wave to get to the gift of what, I was supposed to receive from that scenario?
It was a moment. It
Mm,
was a moment.
mm. I love that. So you talked about coaching and mentoring. And so, I've got to delve into that. So, how do you believe coaching contributes to personal success and organizational success? So, if you were to advise mentors or mentees, like, what advice would you give to those that are aspiring to either take on a mentor, take on a coach, or someone who is, moving into that coaching? Like, what would you advise them of?
So, someone stepping into maybe needing coaching, I think that coaching and mentoring can deliver perspective.
Mm,
My favorite two words when I think about it is a safe place.
mm,
It's a place where you can role play. It's a place where you can
mm,
ask questions.
mm,
It's a place where you eliminate fear of
mm,
judgment.
mm, mm,
And I think mentoring allows you to tell stories, to
mm,
share
mm,
experiences. And so for that, I think it's important for someone being coached to be open,
mhm,
uh, to remember,
mm,
and to connect and figure out how they might leverage this opportunity going forward. Now, someone stepping into the role of a coach, oh gosh, the importance of listening,
mm,
the importance of hearing,
mm,
not telling you what to do, not
mm,
giving you that advice
mm,
because you know best. And
mm,
so again,
mm,
going back to, the thoughts, it's you have it in you.
mm,
You
mhm,
have it in you as a leader.
mm,
you just might need someone to help you pull it out. It
mm,
may be just insight that you need to hear, or a little bit of encouragement,
mm,
but you have the answers, not the coach,
mhm.
not your mentor. You have the answers. So always remember that.
You have the answers. And that piques something else for me, because I what I'm hearing you say is a couple of different things for coachees is that the power is in you, and you need maybe that support or just that safe space to recognize the power within you so that that person or your support can pull that out of you. So um, as we think about, aspiring professional women who want to climb the ladder, and what you mentioned in terms of like coaching is support in a way. So if, let's say, we're talking to listeners who maybe don't have sufficient support at this point in time, and, maybe they feel lonely and they just feel like they're trying to navigate, what words of wisdom or practical tips might you share to empower them on their journey if they're in that place on, hey, I do need a mentor, I do need a coach, but they don't have that sufficient support at that point in time? What would you share for them?
I'm going to give the advice I've probably given to more people, not just women, but I'm going to share my favorite advice. And you have to define your three ingredients.
Mm,
I don't know why this word just sticks with me, but you have to decide what drives you and what motivates you.
mm,
And the reason I say this is you own your career.
mm,
So if you don't feel supported or you don't have extra support
mhm,
networks and you're working towards building that, you have to start inside.
mm,
I
mm,
would say this, even if you do have support, I think that this is critical.
mm,
So growing up in my
mm,
career, I picked my three
mm,
ingredients. And I'm going to tell you what those are, but everyone has different ingredients.
mm,
We all know what drives us, but my three were to add value,
mm, mm,
challenged, and to learn something new every day.
mm,
And I'll tell you that because it's going to tie to a story. So you have to watch those ingredients
mm,
and see if those are present. So if you start to feel bored, you start to feel
mm,
uncertain, you don't have
mm,
interest, or you want to move forward, you need to look at those ingredients.
mm,
You need to look at what drives you and what motivates you and say, are they present?
mm,
So one time I was in a job that was great.
mm,
It was a wonderful job.
mm,
I loved my
mm,
job. And I also didn't love my job.
mm,
And the reason I didn't love it, I went to those three ingredients and I said, well, I know I'm adding value,
mm,
but I really don't feel challenged
mm,
anymore. I don't feel like learning
mm,
anymore.
mm,
I feel a little stagnant.
mm,
So my advice is, what do you do about it?
mm,
Your boss,
mm,
not your leader,
mm,
not your coach or mentor, even if you have one.
mm,
What are you going to do about it?
mm,
And I realized, when you don't have two of your three ingredients, well, maybe it's time for a change.
mm,
It gave me some confidence to figure out why I was making that change.
mm,
So I think you need to watch and pay attention. Another time, I was just not challenged.
mm,
So you know what I did? I asked for more responsibilities.
mm,
I didn't have to change a job. I didn't have to
mm,
go rewire anything. I didn't have to go complete a new
mm,
resume. I said, hey, I could take on a little more work,
mm,
and I fixed my own problem. So if you don't
mm,
have a support network and you're building and growing, start inside of yourself,
mm,
figure out what motivates you, and own that. And I think that you can go very far,
mm.
and then you'll build up your support. It'll be there.
I love that. The three ingredients. And what I'm hearing you say is when you felt, and I'll go back to what you mentioned a bit earlier, off kilter, maybe, that is when
Yeah.
you came back to those three ingredients to say, am I feeling like I'm giving value? And, am I feeling like I'm meeting those ingredients? And how can I empower myself to get what I need as a part of that? And so,
Mhm.
that I feel like that is such a good way to always reevaluate where you are in terms of like the bigger picture, and using what you said, those ingredients to check, like, am I following the joy? What's it, am I feeling and feeding that? And um, and you mentioned another thing. So, and because I want to talk about support a little bit too, a little bit more, is like from your own journey, how vital do you believe it is for women to nurture a support system in both their personal and professional lives? Like, and what strategies do you recommend for effectively establishing and sustaining those networks?
So I believe it's very important for women leaders to have, I will call them your personal board of
Mhm,
directors. I've used that advice before.
mhm,
And if you were to develop your board, you are going to figure out, well, what do I need?
mhm,
And as an example, you may need someone to help you with career questions.
mhm,
You may need someone that's taken those steps before you.
mhm,
So you want to try to
mhm,
find someone
mhm,
in your network
mhm,
or go find a new person and say, how do I leverage how they've built their career?
mhm,
So maybe it's someone you want to emulate, it's
mhm,
someone you
mhm,
admire. So you may need some career help.
mhm,
You may need someone to help you with social presence,
mhm, mhm,
dreaded executive presence. What does that mean?
mhm,
But maybe you want to work on your communication or your
mhm,
style or how you deliver your presentations. So you find the people and you surround yourself with them.
mhm,
But personally, I think that you always need someone to be that sounding
mhm,
board. Should I make this
mhm,
change? Should I do this? And they may go in between your personal and professional. Some of my greatest, dearest
mhm,
friends I I made while working, and I to this day hold them as friends, even though we're no longer peers and
mhm, mhm,
coworkers. Some of my dearest confidants. So you've got to build that support. So I think it's crucial.
mhm,
And I think what you do is you start with what would feel best if I could ask someone a question?
mhm,
What would I need? What kind of advice am I looking for?
mhm,
And you don't have to have 25 people around you.
mhm,
I mean, you may, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you may start with one.
mhm,
And it doesn't have to be a label of a coach or a mentor. It
mhm,
may just be, you know what, this person has good advice.
mhm,
This person as well.
mhm,
This person can keep things confidential for me.
mhm,
So you start there
mhm,
and you build out. And trust me, when you have a pivotal moment in your career,
mhm,
good or bad,
mhm,
those are the people you're going to reach out to.
mhm.
Close.
Awesome. So the board of directors, and this is the group of your support that as you're navigating in your career that you definitely want to have as your sounding board to encourage you and to help you, when you're making those big decisions. And so you mentioned, looking or maybe following someone that you might emulate or someone that you want to emulate in your career, you see as as powerful. So for those that maybe I'm speaking to either introverts or people who may be a little bit shy, or is there something that you could share in terms of strategy for reaching out? Let's say someone sees
Mhm.
someone and they're like, I am in awe of this incredible woman, all that she's accomplished. I see her on LinkedIn or I see her wherever, but I'm just feeling a little bit apprehensive about reaching out. Any thoughts on maybe how they could reach out or best approach?
Absolutely. I've given this advice quite a bit too. Um, People like to help others. Most people do.
Mhm,
And my tip would be think of
mhm,
questions that are important to you. Jot them down.
mhm,
And I encourage women to walk around with a notebook.
mhm,
You're going to think of questions. You're going to think
mhm,
of things you want to learn, things you want to know, or jot them down in your phone.
mhm,
And when you've got two or three really good questions,
mhm,
you're going to reach out to this person.
mhm,
Send them a message. Maybe it's someone that you work with. Send them an email, and you're going to say something that is complimentary. You're going to say,
mhm,
I have watched you navigate
mhm,
XYZ.
mhm,
I watched you present on.
mhm,
I saw your LinkedIn
mhm,
video
mhm,
discussing XYZ.
mhm,
Whatever it is, here's the connection that you and I have together. And whether it's a message, an email, or even a phone call, but likely it's going to be a message.
mhm,
And you're going to say, would you have 15 minutes to answer
mhm,
a few questions for me?
mhm,
I admire you so much, and I would be so grateful if you wouldn't mind spending about 15 minutes with me.
mhm,
And if you don't have time, just know how much you have an admirer off here in the wings. And that's it. Most people will give you 15 minutes.
Mm, mm,
If they don't, you kind of learn something about them too. Now, if you're reaching out to someone that is high profile, yes, you're probably not going to get 15 minutes.
mm,
But you know what? Doesn't hurt to ask.
mm, mm,
Really never know.
mm,
And if nothing else, you practice reaching out. You just practice reaching out. You got to be brave and you got to try.
mm,
So I've given that advice to people, namely those within the company. So I'd love to learn more from you.
mm,
Could I buy you a cup of coffee?
mm,
Could I spend a few minutes with you?
mm,
And usually they will say yes,
mm,
because people like to talk about themselves. It makes them feel honored
mm,
that someone reached out to
mm,
them. And you may feel like, oh, everyone must ask them to do something like
mm,
this. They may not.
mm,
They may not
mm,
be asked that often
mm,
because they are admired so much.
mm,
First. But always have those questions ready. That's really my advice, because you never know when you're going to be in line at coffee. You're going to run into them. You might have some, you know what? I've always wanted to ask you this question.
mm,
Be prepared.
mm.
That would be my tip.
Be prepared and have those questions. And I love what you said about, people normally just want to help. And sometimes that person that you reach out to and you think that many people are reaching out may not have that outreach. So it is good to be brave and courageous and reach out because you just never know what could happen.
No, you never
Powerful,
know.
powerful.
That's
So I want to ask this last question, and as we like sum up our time, is just regarding aspiring women and who are seeking to elevate. What would you think is something that could help them the most as you're thinking about, as we've talked about, challenges and adversities and how to be brave and deal with imposter syndrome or the imposter monster, or just all of
Mhm.
those things in compilation? What is the thing that can help them the most as they're wanting to climb the ladder?
I will say directly to your listeners, you have unique talents.
Mm,
There is no one like you.
mm,
You have an opportunity to move forward.
mm,
You have an opportunity to speak,
mm,
have a voice, share an idea. And yes, there's a way to do it, there's a how to do it, there's a place and time, but it's in you.
mm,
And there's no book that's going to tell you how to do it.
mm,
Podcasts like this are going to give you encouragement.
mm,
They're going to give you ideas.
mm,
You need those.
mm,
If you don't believe in yourself,
mm,
you're never going to put that one foot forward.
mm,
So put that foot forward and you own that.
mm,
Put the foot forward. Think of the one thing that you can do.
mm,
And if you need support, you reach out,
mm,
find what you need, learn what you need,
mm,
but don't be afraid. That's my best advice, is don't,
mm,
because there's no harm in trying.
mm,
You're going to get better at it.
mm,
You reach out to someone, they say no to coffee.
mm,
You know what? You're going to get better at asking. You're
mm,
going to feel more comfortable asking.
mm,
Deliver a presentation and you think it could have been done better. You're going to get better at it
mm,
because now you've done it.
mm,
Keep doing it.
mm,
Consistency is important and continuation is important.
mm,
But I think we need to be a little braver,
mm.
a little braver. Take that step.
I just got goosebumps when you talked about belief in yourself and just being brave and not letting fear get in the way of reaching your full potential.
Mhm.
I am I am in awe, Colleen. I got so much
Jori.
value, goosebumps, and just riding this wave of everything that you shared to the listeners. I hope you got incredible value. I literally have goosebumps because these things hit home for so many of us that are dealing with the thoughts that come up for us that can prevent us from being able to move forward. And what I've heard Colleen say throughout the course of our time is to have belief and not let fear get in the way of you reaching your highest and truest and best self. So, Colleen, thank you so much for joining us today and for coming on to the show. We're so grateful for you, and we will continue to live in the nuggets that you shared with us on this podcast. That was such an inspiring conversation. I got so many nuggets out of what Colleen shared with us. I hope you got a lot of value too. Well, until next time, remember to embrace your POW factor and keep shining as the powerhouse women that you are. I'm Jori Mundy. Stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep leading with purpose.